Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
The most valuable piece of farm equipment is your soil. Soil is your most powerful machine. See more at smartnutritionmst.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today I have an amazing returning guest. I have Darci Lang joining us. Welcome back, Darcy. How are you?
Oh, Tracy, you know, my new line is, with all I can control, I'm great. Right?
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
Oh, I'm great.
Oh, geez. Are we going to go into control in this conversation? I need some lessons on that one. I'm still trying.
That's another podcast.
Okay, good. So today, Darcy is joining us to chat about farmer self-care and why right now we really need to focus on mental and physical health. So welcome back, Darcy. It's great to have you. Before we dive in, can you tell our audience a little bit more about you?
You bet. Well, I'm a motivational speaker, 28 years. I can't believe it. It's almost 29 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
Based here in my home, which who knew the whole world would be in my home? Who knew? But I'm based in my home here in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm married to a handsome farm boy who I know that you have interviewed as well, Darren, yes. And we've been married 25 years. We have a beautiful 21-year-old daughter and an epic 19-year-old son, and rescue pets, which of course, after a year and a half of working from home, I love way more than anybody else right now, right? So yeah, I have a very blessed life. And yeah, this last year and a half has certainly allowed me to practice what I preach.
I love it. And I am so excited to have you on today's episode. So as you know, I know you have grown up on a farm. You have very strong connection to the farming community. So two-part, not only as farmers are we going through the farming tough years and good years, and heaven knows we've had a very tough year with drought and with grasshoppers and all the crazy stuff going on. But on top of all of that we're dealing with, that's already a lot. We are humaning, we are peopling, we are doing the pandemic as moms, dads, and trying to get ourselves and the family through. So it's been a tough couple of years. Do you want to talk about what you're hearing your audience members say and people you connect with about how they're feeling, how they're doing? And I think that'll set the stage to this conversation on why we need to really take care of ourselves right now.
Agreed. Well, firstly, I'll say, Tracy, I grew up in amongst farms. I was raised by my dad in the early 70s. I was born in Bigger, Saskatchewan, but I was raised in the early 70s, 52, so 52 years ago. And I was raised in the early 70s in Edmonton by my dad. And I've had a really colorful childhood. My parents have both been married 3 times each. I have 10 half-stepbrothers and sisters. So I grew up in amongst agricultural families. I just want to clarify, I didn't grow up in the farm, but Darren grew up in the farm, and he has 27 sets of aunts and uncles, and most of them good Catholic families, and most of them are still on the farm. So we grew up absolutely with those roots. So I can tell you not only from what I'm hearing from my audiences, Tracy, but even my own farm families in my families. And it hasn't been an easy year and a half. Like, I'm not glossing over the fact that this has not been difficult. Humaning, what a great word you had for that. Human is kind of piled on top of what is already farming and is already life. So to answer your question, what I'm hearing across the country from my audiences, which I've switched virtual, I, of course, would normally be in 2 cities a week live, but for the last year and a half, Darren and I have switched to virtual presentations, meeting audiences every week. They're tired. They're overwhelmed. And what's interesting is people will often write, I ask the question in my webinars, how are you feeling? Like, give me, which is something I want to talk about today too, having a self-awareness journey of where are we at? Like, how are we feeling? And when people type in the chat to me, I'm feeling Groundhog Day, Like I've lived the same day over and over again.
Yes.
Right? So that is sort of the collective feeling, is that people they're tired, they're overwhelmed, they're exhausted from the things they can't control.
Yeah.
So I'll let you carry on because I want to add to that.
Okay, so I think that really rolls into why we need to take care of ourselves now more than ever. And you have a few really great points that you want to cover. So maybe do you want to take it from there? Do you want to touch on why self-care is extra important when things are tough, and then roll into, I think the first thing you wanted to talk about is chatting about how we think during these hard times.
Absolutely. I'll go back to to answer what you had suggested. Agreed. It is the most important time. And one of the things about taking care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, socially, is that it actually is one of the very few things we can control right now. We can't control markets, yields, droughts, grasshoppers, pandemic, masking, vaccination. I guess we can control that. But what we can control is the person in the mirror. And I call it feed me first, Tracy. So I feed me mentally, physically, spiritually. I feed the four-legged and two-legged in my house. Then I feed the world. And I think so often we grow up at a dinner table, especially for these humble, pious, beautiful, kind farmers that you serve. They grew up at dinner tables where they were taught to serve. So you're growing food and raising animals for the world. You're serving food to the world. And then they weren't really taught. I don't think our dinner tables taught us about self-care. They were taught to serve the world first. Maybe some scraps were given to the families then of what was left over. But then the concept of taking care of ourselves first, I really don't believe that we grew up believing that was true. No. So when I go back to the Groundhog Day, when somebody will type that in the chat to me, I always say to them, well, if you actually watched the 1993 Bill Murray classic, Groundhog Day, the movie, which I highly recommend everyone watches, at the end of the movie, Bill Murray is a better human being than the human being he started out as in the beginning of the movie. So I get it's been Groundhog Day, but Bill Murray did something every single day, small, that made him a completely different person at the end of the movie. So that's what I like to say to people in this time. This is a time where some of us have never had time. Again, I'm normally on an airplane in two cities. I've never been home more in my life, right, Tracy? Yeah. Right. So in theory, we have more time, and I know our farmers are busy and getting harvest off and all that, but we could actually use this time to become the absolute best version of ourselves. Because when all this is over, Tracy, whenever that is something I can't control, I don't want to crawl back to my life. I want to bust back to my normal life, the best version of me. So that's what I'd like to talk about today, Tracy, is in our time, is how to do that.
You know, Darcy, I want to say something really quick. I interviewed you a while back for your book, Focus on the 90%, and that book has changed my life. And I'm gonna veer off here, as I think the best conversations do, and then we'll pick that back up. But for me, just like you said, I'm gonna watch Groundhog Day, but it's so easy to focus on what we can't control and what we don't like about right now and what's been taken away and what's different. Daily, I am reminding myself, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What is actually bad? There's a lot bad going on in the world, but as far as it's affecting my life, there are so many great things and opportunities, but yet it's so easy to focus on the bad part, the negative part, the 10% that's wrong with life. So I had to bring that up because kudos to you. Your book has changed me and the way I think. And every time I'm going down that rabbit trail and focusing on the negative, it's like, wait a minute, there's 90% good in this life, in this good situation. I just need to pivot. So anyways, that was a shout out to your book.
I'm so grateful, Tracy, because when I run into women at co-op who say, I saw you speak, it was great, I always say the same thing. Thank you so much for being able to compliment another person. And then I always ask them, what did you do with it? Because there's one thing to hear these messages and, oh, she was great. What did she say? I don't know. But to go actually back to our life and take, because we haven't probably set up well enough that this focus on the 90% message that I've been delivering for 28 years is my belief that we hold this big imaginary magnifying glass out in front of us in our lives, and we have a choice what we focus it on. Right, the 90%, the positive aspects of our life, are the 10% not so positive things we can't control.
I know.
And that powerful word that I use there, Tracy, is choice. Like, we have a choice when we wake up in the morning. Again, I'm not glossing over, this has not been a 10% filled year. There's been death. People are sick, they've lost their jobs, and it's affected the farms. It's affected, the wrecking ball blew through our business and wiped our business out. I understand all that. It's affected young people socially. It's a lot. But these are the things I can't control. So, but what I can is the person in the mirror.
I love it.
Is this a good time? I'll launch into a little bit of self-care.
I think we pivoted right into the first point on how we think. Did you want to go there right now? We're halfway there.
You bet. I would like to touch a little bit on, finish maybe the thoughts a bit on self-care.
Okay, sure.
Because
Perfect.
back to the, feed me first, right?
Okay,
we weren't taught to do that. And, I only have about an hour of what we learned at our dinner tables growing up and how that affects and imprints our belief systems on pretty much everything we do. But if we're staying on the track of talking about self-care, again, I have to say that not a lot of people taught us how.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the agricultural families that I grew up in, I'll talk as a woman, the agricultural women in my life, they are amazing. They can things, they preserve things, they grow things, they kill things. They are the most amazing women I know. But they haven't really taught me a lot about self-care and the absolute importance of taking care of the person in the mirror. So I think sometimes we tell stories about not taking care of ourselves that are really, really old. And I always joke, pray that you never get stuck with me on an airplane, because I'll unpack your belief systems and why you treat yourself the way you do in that hour. You'll be sorry you sat with me. Maybe not you, Tracy, because you're so fun.
I would love it.
Be careful what you say, you might not. But I'm all about people changing how they take care of themselves. Because, again, I only have an hour on this, but I'll be quick and say, if you look after the mental, physical, spiritual self, if you look after yourself, self-care, then you are what I call full. Again, mentally, physically, spiritually. Then you go out into the world full, and you can fill from that place. And I don't know about your life, but my life needs energy. I cannot go deplete my job. I can't show up here half empty. I don't have the luxury of dragging myself to a podcast. Like, I have to show up. But this is my job, Tracy. I've got a huge, enormous family, a huge, enormous life waiting for me outside of this job that requires me too. And when I watch my friends self-sabotaging with booze and drugs and shopping and gambling and Facebook and self-sabotaging behaviors of not sleeping well and not eating well and not taking care of themselves, I say, you're going to crash. And if life hits like COVID did, and life hits or an illness hits, or you've got an aging parent, a teenage problem, a marriage problem, a money problem, farm problem, no yield, whatever, now you're depleted. And when life hits, you will crash. And nobody can afford that, Tracy. And I can tell you, I know farmers, and I know some that are listening, that they would give anything back for their health. Anything. And they would do anything to be healthy again. So why do we wait for a crash? Why don't we do it now so that we believe we're worth taking care of? Because that's where it starts. And back to the dinner table. We didn't all get taught that. So what if we taught ourselves that we were worth it? And then guess what we did, Tracy? We taught the next generation the importance of it. Because exhausted and overworked is not a badge of honor. It's sad. And it makes you have nothing left for the people that you love at the end of the day. And when you jump off that tractor and cross the yard to your dinner table, who are you when you sit down to eat? And what choices did you make in self-care to eat well, sleep well, do some exercise, which I get farming is exercise, and maybe even some meditation to quiet the brain so that you can be full, again, filling from that place. So that's the self-care. Again, I could do 9 self-cares. I've got books on self-care. You know, there's no person alive who doesn't know how they could take better care of themselves. But the bigger challenge is, why aren't you? And when will you believe you are worth it? Tracy, then I'd love to talk about changing how we think. But did you want to add to that before I jump in?
Well, no, really the only point I wanted to put to that is I think of my farmer and our farm, and I think we always think it's going to slow down. That's the big joke in our family. We're like, okay, it's going to slow down right away. It's going to slow down, and then we'll do this. That's not farm related, right? But anybody in the audience watching that knows that farms, it's always something. And that time when you think you're going to have some downtime, well, the cows get out, the fence needs to be fixed, whatever it is. So I think to me, that's one of the biggest things that get in the way of self-care. It's like, okay, I'll slow down soon because it's going to be some downtime right away. But it never happens. We're a fast-paced society, right?
Right. And I see that with my agricultural families too. Agreed. I call it it's kind of that I'll get it done when, I'll be happy when, I'll look after myself when. Well, then we never do. But if people say to me, well, I don't have time to look after myself, I say, then let me come to your house for a week. Let me come hang out with you and eat your farm food and follow you around. I bet you we can find some time. So this is where we talk about how we think. Maybe we'll just launch into that.
Yes, let's do it.
Tracy, because again, I could do another hour on finding time, but let's get the high level things out. So looking after the person in the mirror, believing you're worth it, scheduling time in for it. And I'm not talking a week at a spa. I wish. I'm talking minutes a day. What if you took minutes a day to do things better and different? What if you replaced the XL coffee with a medium? What if you took your sugar out of your diet? What if you ate more vegetables? Everyone knows that's the fundamental truth is but are you doing it? And do you think you're worth it? Then we change how we think, which I'm going to give you more time. So when we talk about how we think, so looking after the person in the mirror, taking care of me and my self-care it's so important because Tracy, I am always investigating. I'm 52, I feel 30. Never felt better in my life. But I am investigating all that I eat, read, watch, and surround myself with. Watch, listen to, read. I will make me a better human being. 90% of the time. I'm super fun on the weekends, but I'm super boring all week. But 90% of the time, I don't eat it, read it, watch it, drink it, unless it makes me a better human being. So if you want to find more time, get out from behind a screen. Get out from behind your screen.
Yes.
Put your phone down for a week. Okay, let's talk about changing how we think. Again, I don't think we grew up believing a belief system of self-care. But some of you did, and that's lovely. But most of us did not grow up with a belief system that we were worthy of self-love and taking care of. I treat myself just like I treat my child. If they're tired, I say go to bed. If they're hungry, I feed them. I'm like that. Then I have to also realize that the dinner table I was raised at, and some of you were raised at, also taught us how to think. And a lot of us didn't grow up learning how to be positive. We have to train our brain, Tracy. You said it. The brain naturally looks for what is a 10%.
Yep.
You can look around and see what isn't working and what isn't good. But my challenge is training the brain like you're doing, Tracy, with the book and the message, to wake up and say, I know what isn't good, but I guarantee you the majority of what isn't good in your life, you have no control over. The base of the 90% message is the challenge and the choice to wake up in the morning and say, okay, I know what isn't good, but what is? And what am I grateful for? What is good? What am I grateful for? What can I control? So it's important that we, of course, talk about our 10%. I don't live in delusion here that, I don't call it focus on the 100%. There's always going to be 10. But to train the brain to look for what is good, what's been incredibly helpful for me, Tracy, in this COVID time, is anyone who knows me knows I don't read the paper and I don't watch the news. And and I know you have to do that for agriculture to monitor what you have to monitor. But what if you did that for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night? Do you really need that going on in the combine and the tractor and on the news and the TV? Do you really need that? What if I took all social media off of my phone. I only do it professionally. I'll never put it back on. It was liberating. And yeah, go ahead. You too, Tracy, go ahead, please.
Yep. I took my social media apps off my phone and actually put it on an old phone, because you get to keep your phone if you upgrade. And my social media apps are on my old phone, or I could have put it on a tablet, and I only check it probably about 3 times a day now.
Smart.
Yeah.
So smart. And what if we queued up podcasts, TED Talks, YouTube videos to listen to while we're driving and combining and doing all you do that help you be a better human being? And when people sit next to me in the airplane and say, well, I don't know where I'd start, I say, pick your biggest burning 10%. What is it? Because if it's a health challenge, Tracy, if you have a health challenge mentally or physically right now, it will be all you think about. So why wouldn't you get yourself in such a healthy place, learning tools to fill your toolbox with, so that you can focus on the other things in your life? Because mental and physical health will consume your every thought. So rather than complaining about the same thing, which you know you've heard me before, I have a very strict 3 times complain rule. So rather than complaining about your 10% more than 3 times, and I know some of you complain more than 3 times, I have what is called a lay that sucker out meeting, because talking about how you feel is very important. I love Canadian mental health theme this year. Don't numb it, name it. And I don't know, again, that we were raised to talk about how we feel. Because, you know, good girls made everybody happy and women gave 110%. And my God, my grandma ironed my grandpa's underwear. Good Lord. You know, and men were taught to suck it up and not talk about their feelings. How's that working for you? What if we complain 3 times? Because if you don't talk about how you feel, again, you drink, you drug, you shop, you gamble, you Facebook, you work too much. Because working too much is a great way to avoid the person in the mirror, the one you have to change. So I have a 3 times complain rule. I complain 3 times. I lay that sucker out, not the people, the problem. And I say, what does Darcy need? What does Darcy, person in the mirror, need to do to be the best version, to overcome this 10%? Health challenge, mental health, family dynamic, whatever it is. There's a billion things you could Google to get help with. And what if that is what you did when you drove instead? That's how you change the brain, by what you put in the brain and then how you talk.
I love it. Don't we have something called the negativity bias? Our brains naturally, the way we're programmed since the beginning of time, we just seek out what's negative as a protection mechanism. Isn't that the way the brain works?
Absolutely. I was listening to a Jay Shetty podcast the other day that said 70% of our thoughts in a day are negative or gossip. And I thought, well, that certainly applies in small community, doesn't it? But what? 70%. So my hope is to just keep training the brain, because when people sit next to me and say, I have nothing to be grateful for, I say, oh my God, you're alive.
Yeah.
You made it through COVID. Your family's healthy enough for you to be sitting listening to this podcast. You have a roof over your head. Some of your customers own acres of land and they live in a provincial park setting. You have families. There's so much. We put garbage in a garbage can. All you got to do is travel to a third world country and realize how blessed we are. So it's the abilities to see what is good. And how, honestly, Tracy, I think that's how we do it. We look after the person in the mirror. We are full. We start getting the brain full with, again, reading, listening, whatever. And then we can start to talk more positively too.
Okay.
And changing the conversation. Because when you get caught up in that gossip and the complaining, talking about your rabbit hole, you start to go down a rabbit hole. I don't know if you've ever left coffee with somebody who felt like, I need a shower to get this conversation off of me. It feels terrible. That's very intuitive. If you really feel that way, that's a very intuitive way. So looking at how do we talk, I recommend you, after you watch the Groundhog Day movie, Google Dr. Emoto, E-M-O-T-O. And Dr. Emoto on YouTube did a power of water. And what he did is talk positively to water, negatively to water. And it changes, molecularly changes and I talk to my plants, I talk to my trees, and I have this blooming, amazing yard. But there's something about the power of words. And to be spoken to positively, it's huge. So in our time, I want people to take care of themselves. I want them to change their brain and how they think. Stop sweeping their problems under the carpet, just like we did growing up. But if you did that, you have been tripping over that same thing for 2 generations. Pull that thing out from under the carpet, lay that sucker out, and spend this next part of 2021 becoming the best version of you. Because I am absolutely sure there's somebody in your life who wishes you to take better care of yourself.
Absolutely. That is great. And, Darcy, you keep on saying that a majority of us haven't been taught this. And I have amazing parents, and so many people have amazing parents out there, but they can only teach what they know. And I think this conversation's still fairly new, right? And if you go on social media, especially right now with everything going on, you just look at the angst and the emotion and how explosive people are, and you go, wow, what are they feeling on the inside? What's going on in their life where they're coming and releasing that on everybody? And this conversation, you're right, we have to just kind of take it back and take care of us, right? Because you look around. I mean, there's so many, again, negativity bias. There's so many great things going on in the world. It's definitely overridden by pandemic and everything else going on, but it's so easy to see that people are suffering right now, right?
Right on. And my favorite quote is, be the change you want to see in the world. And the change I want to see, Tracy, is I want people to be kinder to themselves so that they can treat their families kinder, and then they can go out into the world kinder. Because happy, kind people don't post mean things. We don't. I've never in my life posted a negative comment in my life. And, I had a box show up at the other door. Oh, who knew we would be online shopping? I never did that in my life. I never did a Zoom call before March 2020 either. And the box was terrible, but I've been run over by the truck, and the courier, everything inside was fine. It was a pillow for my couch, big deal. And the courier said, are you going to complain about this box? I said, what?
Yeah.
What first world problem would I have complaining to a company that is barely getting product out the door? What? Who would do that? You will not go be love in the world if you do not take care of yourself. So what if I didn't do emotionally charged anything? Because people who write mean things about me as a speaker, I just say a prayer for them, and I think, gosh, you're that unhappy with yourself that you would post that to a stranger? It's not the change I want to see in the world. I personally think, Tracy, the world needs a ton of kindness right now.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, you are the most amazing, lovely person I possibly know. And you just told me if somebody posted negativity about you, they really need to look on the inside, right?
Amen.
That's crazy.
Amen. And I'm not saying entitled to give their opinion shouldn't be able to give their opinion, but what's the point?
Yes.
And is it loving? And is it creating a loving community? And you can't change culture. People, if I'm in an organization, people say, well, we have morale issues. I say, no, you don't. You have a pocket of unhappy people in your community, in your organization, in your farm group who are not happy with the person in the mirror, didn't learn how to be happy, coming to these meetings and making other people happy. That's not morale issues. It's just a pocket of unhappy people. Because changing the person in the mirror, Tracy, is the hardest person to change. It's way easier to sit around the community complaining about everybody else's life and how they run their farm and how they look after their animals. But I was raised by a dad who taught all 10 of us kids never to judge unless we were willing to help. So if you're going to go out into the world and see somebody through a 10% lens, I would first question the person in the mirror. Why do I think like this? Why do I talk like this? Why do I act like this? Who am I? Because we have a profound opportunity to become where we came from, or the opposite. And the choices I make affect my family and how I go out into the world, right? So are we being kind in our community? Are we judging other people without willing to help? I don't know. Sometimes I think we judge because we're depleted, because you see the world how you see yourself. What if this was the self-awareness, self-reflection time? Because the purpose of mindfulness, Tracy, is to make you kind. Are we kind? And if not, why?
Yeah. As soon as you see, I've learned that, right? You read a lot. As soon as you see somebody posting that type of stuff, there's a lot of stuff going on the inside. Unfortunately.
And again, everybody's entitled. This is a very difficult time for people on their opinions, but you don't have to subscribe. You don't have to respond. You don't have to be on that app. You can delete that app. You can block that person and get on with your big, beautiful, and amazing life, because these people rent space in our head and then they win. And they make us question our goodness and our kindness. We're good enough, Tracy. And even if no one raised you to believe that you're good enough, you're good enough. And 90% is good enough. And as soon as you start believing that, you will treat people kindly. You'll treat the staff who work for you in the farm kindly, and then you will go treat the world kindly too. But it starts here. And it's the hardest person to change. So people say, I don't like doing the people stuff. I say, then don't lead. Please don't ever lead. Don't try to be the head of a family if you don't want to look after the person in the mirror and do the people stuff. It's the most important thing at the end of your life. What did you do in the people realm all your life? Anyway, sorry, you had questions and I'm all fun.
I was going to say, and at the end of the day, it's the only person that you can change is yourself. You can't change anybody else. And the way you show up, and I know you're going to go into this some more, but the way that we show up, if you show up a grumpy pants, or you show up like Darcy, happy and bubbly, you affect the way that people receive you and how your day goes, right? So at the end of the day, you can only change yourself. And that's how you lead others too, right?
Amen. And I'm a codependency enabling poster child. Like, I've spent years detaching from the people's problems around me. My whole life, I've had trauma, abuse, stress, crisis in my childhood. I've lived with addicts and mental health, all kinds of challenges. And I have no control over anybody else but me. I'm writing my 4th book right now, and the subline, it's Embrace the 90%. And it says how to accept, detach, and let go. Ooh. Because I think we're hanging on, some of us, to wanting to change other people when we need to lay all that down and say, what do I need to do? What does a person in the mirror need to do? And nothing in your life will change unless you change you. And I believe you'll always suffer if you don't look after the person in the mirror. And I don't know about you, but I got one chance at this amazing life. We're rocking it out.
I know. It's so crazy. And I think it's so easy to lose perspective too, right? Again, focusing on that 10%. Anybody watching this, chances are they have a lot going on. That's amazing. And it's so easy to get caught in those weeds and focus on the little things. And Darcy, I'm a positive person. I have an amazing life. And every once in a while, you're hung up on the 10% and you're trying to fix the 10%. And then I call it like waking up. I'm awake, obviously, but I wake up and I go, wait a minute. Why did I let that little thing bug me so much? Tracy, you only have one life and you just wasted a whole day being annoyed, upset, worried. That's a big one. Worried about this little thing. You never get that day back. And if it's weeks, months, years, that's gone. Time's gone, right?
Tracy, well, if we were on the airplane together and you were telling me that story, I would say a few things. Firstly, what did that teach you about Tracy, right? Because if somebody has the power to take a day from you, your words, then it's obviously to teach us something. And if you said worry, you worry, I would sit on the airplane and say to you, who taught you how to worry? And what are you worried about? And why was that a belief system? So that's why when I ask people in my podcast, when I do webinars, when I do webinars, I ask people, how are you feeling 1 to 5? They'll tell me whether they're great, which is 5, or not great, which is 1. And then I say, put a name to that emotion. And they'll say tired, exhausted, depleted, Groundhog Day. Then I challenge them to say, why? Why are you feeling the way you feel right now? Good or bad? And what did you do yesterday? What did you eat? What did you read? Who did you surround yourself with? Did you eat well? Did you exercise? Did you sleep well? And then have this self-awareness journey of every morning looking in the mirror and saying, what did I do yesterday to affect? Who did I hang out with? What did I think about? And why? There's so much time in the tractor and combine to think about why. There's a lot of time walking around checking animals to think about Why am I the way I am? And am I happy with who I am? And if not, what can I do? Not they do. What can I do to change that? Anyway, sorry, I'm off when the train keeps going in all these different off these tracks.
Those are the best conversations. And you know what? Sometimes, Darcy, I have learned the brain just needs to think and do its thing all the time. And they say most of our thoughts are negative and repeat. And what I find is I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I need to think instead of listen to a podcast. So I'll be driving and then you start thinking and then it goes down this path. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We clearly know these thoughts. It's nothing new. We're not solving anything. Do I need to think? And I often actually just put on podcasts to be something coming into my brain that's positive. And it's just overriding whatever we want to call that, the lizard brain, the brain that just thinks and the spins. You don't really get anywhere, right? So just take in new content. And to me, that is a pattern interrupt. If you're going to sit there and worry in the tractor, just put on a podcast and listen to somebody else. And guaranteed you won't be thinking about your problems and you're taking in positive content. That's kind of what I learned about my brain. It's pattern interrupt, new content coming in.
That is so insightful. I couldn't agree more because again, I'm not going to, and again, we're talking 90% of the time. We all need to read something that isn't that motivational all the time. Of course. But I also want to add to what you said, Tracy, the power of silence. And when people can't, that's not what you're saying, I hear you, but when people can't be alone with their thoughts, I say, perfect. That's where you start. Whatever thought comes, because I've been through trauma, lots of trauma, like big, mucky trauma as a child. And they're triggers. I have lots of triggers and flashbacks and all kinds of really real problems that pop into my head, Tracy. You've got to learn how to, love the inner child. This is a whole other thing, but put the hand on the heart and say, it's okay, hon. It's okay. Everything's okay. What's good right now? But I'm a meditation person. I again, don't want to do it today, but in the morning and in the evening, every single day, I'm a busy woman too. I meditate and I just say, thank you. And just the power for your farmers to sit just for 2 minutes before they start an engine, before they head out to the cows, and just look up at the sun. I call it body scan. I scan down and relax my body. I scan back up to my mouth every day and I smile and then look where they live. You get to work outside. You have sun in your face. You own acres of land. There's so much good, but just that time of silence as well. But we can do another podcast on that one.
Oh, I love it. Our conversations could best conversations.
We only need a week.
Oh, I know. I'm going to purposely arrange to accidentally be beside you on a plane one day. You'd be perfect. Yeah. I love it. Okay. So I just want to make sure and pick up here and you can go wherever you want to go here. We chat about how we think, how we talk, how we treat ourselves, and how that goes into creating the big picture of how we show up. Did you want to touch on any of those? Take that anywhere at this point?
You bet. I'll do that quickly. I know we're running out of time, but that's how we show up. Because back to the point of the morale issues, when people say, we have morale issues, I say, no, you have a pocket of unhappy. I have almost four books now, but my first two books are motivational. My third book is called Lead the 90% Kind Leadership. And I've sat in the back of the room for 28 years watching audiences come in the room as a speaker. So not only have I watched you farmers come in the room at all the agricultural events that I spoke at, I've also watched the leaders, and I wrote a book on the most important traits. So it's been an incredible human dynamics study, and I interviewed the top 20. And I called it kind leadership because kindness is the most important thing. And it's back to the point of how you show up. I have people who walk into banquet rooms at the cattlemen's suppers and at the agriculture events who are angry. What? You're eating a free dinner put on by your sponsor here, by your agricultural farm implement company, and we show up unhappy, right? But it's really the billboard for who we are. And if we want people to stay in our communities, we want people to be part of the succession plan, we want people to farm, how have we made it look and sound? How do we talk about it? How do we think about it? Do we sit around talking about how blessed, honored, and privileged you are to feed the world? Or do we complain about market yields and pricing? Because if all we do is complain, we are a billboard. I'm a billboard for what I do, and we are. So then you show up with your billboard already saying what you don't like and what you can't control. And then I believe that depleted person treats the people that work with them unkindly. They don't say thank you enough. They're always focusing on what people did wrong. People need to know they're good, Tracy. Because some of the people I've led in my life never heard they were good anywhere in their life, not at their dinner table, not in their loveless marriages. And I take very seriously being full enough to be able to tell people, thank you, and you're good, and I appreciate all you do on our farm. That doesn't happen enough. That kindness is hard to do when we are depleted and unhappy. And then, what do you have left for the people that you love? Because if you didn't take care of yourself, I think it's selfish, because now you're physically, mentally, and spiritually unwell. You've shown up in the community unwell, banging on tables. Then we go to our farm, the people who work on our farm, and we don't do enough job of sending them home happy and full. And then we sit at our own dinner table. And what do we say at our dinner table about the day on the farm? That's really important. Be so kind, so that you can go be kind and you could sit at your dinner table with something left for the people that you love and have some kindness left for them. That's the change I want to see. That's it, Tracy. And then sit with me on an airplane and we'll unpack. Why aren't you doing it?
I love it.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah. You know, what a timely conversation. And you're just filling my heart up too. I am optimistic. I love life, motivated. But, you know, I'll be true and transparent. These last 2 years have been tough, right? There's been some stuff going on. And sometimes when stuff's going on in the world, the pandemic, things are not, well, you can never control it. But when you don't see hope or an end to the pandemic, it's easy to lose hope, right? And it's very easy to lose your center of navigation, right? If you're normally positive. For myself as well, it's come down a little bit. And this conversation's amazing and timely. It's really made my heart feel nice, Darcy.
And I'm not, again, Tracy, by any sense, please not hear me glossing over this is not the difficult.
No.
That's why, again, of course I have 10% days. There's been some days that I have been absolutely a 1 over this last year and a half. It's had a powerful impact on my business, my family. The ripple of it has extended to my family members. I'm with you, but these are the things I can't control.
Right.
And I know when my friends say, I can't handle this, I say, you know what you need to do? You need a week of self-care. You just need to look around at your life, which is a big thing I do, and say, okay, this has stressed me out 3 times. This I don't like doing 3 times. Can I eliminate it? Why are we bringing on more in the COVID year? I've wiped the slate clean so I can get myself well. It doesn't matter if everything on the farm is done, Tracy. It won't always be done. So what if we left the fence? I know the cows get out, but what if we fix that one piece so the cows get out and then we just took a date night? What if? What if you just left a few potatoes in the ground? I know, but what if you had just left a few potatoes in the ground and you had just had a really hot bath and went to bed? What if? So what do you need right now? What do you need right now that would make you happy? And then lay that sucker out and figure out a way to make it happen. And I believe then we'll be kinder. And that's what I really want people to be right now in a world that is suffering and really sad and lonely. Let's be kind and ask, what can I do to help?
Amen. That is what we need. Absolutely. Okay, that was fantastic. It really hit home for me. Much needed. I need you every morning in my mirror with me. Do you have any tools or resources? I want to do a shout out to your book because earlier I mentioned how much it's impacted me. Do you want to share some tools and resources really quick with our audience?
Sure. Maybe I'll just talk about the books quick. Sure. That's my website. Let me say my website. I'm Darcy with an I, so it's DARCI. lang.com. I've got all kinds of downloads on there. I've got a lot on my leadership link there as well. So anyway, there's lots of downloads there. I've got all kinds of quotes and beautiful things that people could be adding to email trails, etc. You mentioned my first book, Focus on the 90%, which I'm so incredibly proud of in its 8th edition. So I'm very excited about that. So that gives you the base message. That's sort of a 12-hour presentation. We've done about 20 minutes of that book here today. Nice. Then I was very divinely called to write my second book, which is Living the 90%, and talk more about the trauma, sexual assaults, really difficult bits in my life. So I wrote Living the 90%, which is 9 Ways to Be Happier. We talked about the leadership book, which I wrote Kind Leadership. Thank you, COVID, for a year off last year to write that. And now I'm going to have a very, very slow winter again with people afraid to do live events. So I'm finishing up my 4th book, which is a woman's book. Again, Embrace the 90%. Accept it, detach, and let go. So I will be happy to do something really special for you, Tracy. So why don't we do 2 for 1 on the books?
Okay.
So if anybody's interested in any of the books, Sandra, my assistant, will send you a link, and we can do Sandra, my admin assistant, has been my admin assistant for 28 years. I'm so blessed. And she'll send a link, and we can do a nice 2 for 1. Because maybe you know somebody on the farm who really needs to hear this, and I'll happily pay that forward.
Oh, thank you, Darcy. That's amazing. And what I'll do is when I get that link, I'll put all the details in the show notes of this episode. Thank you for doing that. And I'm excited to read the new one as well. So, okay. They know how to reach you. They have their website, your website address, if they want to connect with you, buy books. I know you do speaking as well for groups. There's many people in the corporate setting that watch the show. So if you would love to have Darcy's amazing message for your sales team, marketing team, for your company, just connect with Darcy. I know a few people have watched the previous show and read the book and connected with you. So, okay, Darcy, I'm going to put you on the spot with one last chance to give some parting words of wisdom, a call out. I know you gave some great stuff. Do you have anything that you want to add?
Really, no, just go back to the worthy piece. It's going to be so much of my new book is just, please believe you are worth taking care of, no matter what you learned at your dinner table. And some of us are not 20 anymore, but we're still holding on. And when we let go of all those 10% and we start to be able to see ourselves through a 90% lens, we naturally, it almost like when you melt off the tent, you naturally go into the world kinder. But Tracy, you said it, we didn't learn it, and we just need to just live through this pandemic, popping out the other end of it. I know it's hard. Have your 10% days, come do what you need to do to get through those 10% days, but then say, okay, I've had my pity party. What do I need to do, person in the mirror? Bust back out and give the best version of me and be a support to the people that you love. That would be my parting words. So grateful. We are tearing up the webinar world. They're very interactive and very fun. So I appreciate the shout out to your corporate clients. I would love to pump up the teams because trust me, they need it right now. Even if they're Zoom fatigued, we do it in a really fun way.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Darcy. I really appreciate your time. Like I said, this has impacted me. So thank you. Thank you. And you in the audience, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there. Because you know what? Everybody needs to hear this message right now. So thank you and see you next week. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Tracy. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Take care of you.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.